Luna says, can one unstick the caudate nucleus? If so, yeah, that's what I mentioned, Luna. That's the whole idea. You unstick it by your behavior, because eventually it learns that that is what you're expecting, and it goes back into that function. So your behavior for recognizing what intrusive thought is, that it is not you, it's an OCD, it is not you, it's the brain, and you recognize them for the faults that they are, they're irrelevant to you, and then you continue your way, and you don't engage with them or resist them or to shut them down or anything. Just let them be, and you be your own and do your own thing. And you continue this every time they show up. Call them for what they are, recognize them for what they are. They're not you, you're not them, you're not thought, thought is not you, you're not the brain, brain is not you. This is OCD, this is intrusive thoughts. I see that. And then you're above the thought, not the thought. And then you recognize that there is a you, and the you is the master. You is the one who chooses and judges thoughts. And then you keep doing what you're doing over and over until eventually it sees that the brain sees that you're alert of this, you're wise to this, the jig is up, so it doesn't keep alarming you and putting the spotlights on it to focus on it, to bring it to your attention. You simply let it fall by the wayside, because you have recognized that this is intrusive thoughts. You're no longer fearful of it. You recognize it as a false. Therefore, you don't be heightened. Your senses would not be heightened. Your security alarm would not be heightened. So then it will learn that it shouldn't be reacting or suggesting, because these things are not interesting to you. All right. No. Caudate nucleus is not necessarily just for OCD. How can I look? It's a malfunction that can happen for anything that is supposed to be automatically taken care of, but it's not doing its job. It's like, have you noticed that you sometimes have a song stuck in your head over and over and you can't get rid of it? Caudate nucleus is malfunctioning. So it doesn't have to be necessarily OCD. It's just something that it's looping. So many healthy people have that malfunction, even though it's not OCD. That's my opinion, based on my understanding and life experiences. And these things could lead into many other things. So sometimes ears ring, and that ringing, it could be because of the ear problem, but it also could have nothing to do with the ear, and it's the short circuitries of the neurons that all the signals across the brain have created this static that you hear in the ear. And that could also have something to do with the malfunction of an automatic system that is supposed to clear that, and it doesn't clear. So could be all kinds of things, but what it is that that's a false signal. It's supposed to be automatically taken care of. So there's something malfunctioning going on. And when there is an OCD, it's even more in more ways than one. Luna says, "Oh, I think you've answered my question." So it's what you're saying, essentially, is that in order to unglitch the OCD ness, one merely has to practice mindful remastering of our non-sensual thoughts. Well, you see, look, there are many different techniques that you can use for unglitch the OCD, which I've put the links below the 19 videos that I have on the playlist, part of the playlist, Intrusive, Transient, OCD, HOCD, Negative Thoughts. And you will have links to work of the scientists, such as neuroscientists, such as Dr. Schwartz and his explanation presentation, author of You're Not Your Mind, and the You're Not Your Brain, You're Not Your Brain, and also Brain Lock. And it explains clearly what happens in the components of the brain and why they're functioning. And the problem with OCD is that, and then there are other links there. Dr. Philipson is there, Dr. Schwartz, Dr. Penzel. These are all scientists who have done tremendous amounts of work on these subjects. And in my case, I have studied their work in some parts, and also I have elaborately studied the work of Mr. Jiddu Krishnamurti from 100 years ago and masters of that era. Plus, lo and behold, another 65 years of my own life, almost, let's say, if I started having experiences of, even though a child didn't know what it was, but I was dealing with it since maybe 10 years old. So that whole journey of understanding it and pondering on it, analyzing it, to fix it on my own with experiences that did or didn't work, has given me the insight to be able to bring all of these experiences and scientific researches and logical pondering, such as the work that Mr. Jiddu Krishnamurti, for 60 years of his teaching career, since 1920s, had famous psychologists gather around him from around the world, and quantum physics professors asking him questions about psychology of brain, movement of the mind, movement of the brain, thoughts and consciousness, and so on, desire and ego, fear. All of that was discussed. So that's what I loved to research. And for years, I was able to ponder on it, analyze it, and write about it in my own journals, and eventually publish my book, and now continue on this journey, adding scientific world and scientific work of famous researchers, such as the ones I mentioned, into my work, and able to make sense of it even more, of how this thing is, what this thing is, and help whoever would wish to understand it better. So what I was going to say, which I started and I forgot, let me see your question, maybe I can remember. There was something I wanted to tell you. Give me a moment, maybe I can remember. Zetki says, thanks for your advice, Mehran, you're welcome. Roller Girl says, I worked daycare in the 80s. We were taught to repeat saying what we needed the kids to do until they did it. Repetition. Yeah, that's exactly how one gets good at it. Yeah, I think it was what I wanted to talk about OCD with Luna, that there are ways that you can wean yourself out of that by being mindful. For example, if you are in habit of, oh yeah, this is what I want to say. Like, if you are in habit of checking the door handle, if the door is locked, or if you check the kitchen light or kitchen stove to see if it's off before you want to leave your home, instead of doing it 3, 4, 5 different times and then leave the door and then come back and say, oh, I gotta check it again, I'm not sure, you go in and check it again. You can start by doing it very mindful way. In other words, with care, look at the knobs of the stove and remember, register it, that you have seen it. It is off, all 4 of you, or 5 of them, 4 of the knobs, 5 of the knobs. And then you slowly take your eyes off of it, having registered what you've seen, evidence of being off. And then you mindfully, when you turn the light off, you remember your finger is going towards the switch, and you clicked it and notice is off, register it. You come out of the door, you remember your key taken off your hand, you pay attention to it, and then you focus on the hole that you put in the key in, and you remember, register that you're actually making the action. So in other words, you are mindfully doing the actions necessary for you to leave your place. So when you do that once with careful attention, then you will not do it 5 times and even go into the street coming back to check it because you thought you didn't check it. Because you remember all the frames that you did. So you start with that, and every time you do that, and after a while, you'll do it quicker and only once. And because, for example, you think that you got to wash your hands, and you have an obsession to wash your hands, and the compulsion would be to actually wash the hands. And you washed it 2, 3 times, but you wash it again. And again, the compulsion is there and makes you feel good. And after a while that you've had this OCD, whether it's OCD or HOCD or whatever subset of OCD, you keep doing it, you become really good at it. Every time you do the compulsion, whatever the compulsion is, whether data hunting, thinking, debating, arguing with the idea, with the thought, or it is washing your hands several times, whatever it is that you do the compulsion, after you do the compulsion, you feel good because you're satisfied you did something about it. When you feel good, there is in the midbrain, there's a place for dopamine that is secreted because you feel good. It's the reward. It's a reward center. And the funny enough that the reward center is right underneath the habit, what creates habit in the brain, the component that habituates something. And funny enough, that area is also leads to caudate nucleus. So what you're really doing by keep washing your hands or ruminating on the thought that appears, intrusive thoughts, and you discuss with it, whatever topic might be, it's irrelevant, but whatever topic it is, you keep thinking about it, talking about it, discussing it, and finding evidence, data hunting. All of that has now been turned into, every time you got a dopamine because you did that, you're actually encouraging that to become a habit, because the two center of the habit and the dopamine are right on top of each other. They work together. So when you keep doing it, after a while, you no longer are doing it for OCD or actually believing the intrusive thoughts that appeared. You're actually doing it because it has become your habit. And the habit, if you do it, you get the dopamine. Now you're addicted to that secretion of dopamine due to the habit that you have created. And there we go. No longer OCD is playing the big part in it. The dopamine and the fact that you've turned it into a habit, and habit center is very strong. And it keeps you doing the shit that you've been doing, and you think it's the OCD. It is. But now something else added to it. It's the habit. And that because every time you did the OCD, there was dopamine. So you got rewarded. That's how the habit is created. They did a study. I don't know if I discussed this before or not. They did a study. In fact, Dr. Schwartz in his presentation discusses about the study. I think it was done by UCLA science team or some university, I don't remember, that they trained a rat to be trained for 2 different tones of sound. And one tone was directing the rabbit or encouraging the rabbit. The aim of it was not the rabbit, the rat, to go forward and make a left turn toward chocolate milk. And every time that rat did the right turn, to the correct turn to the left for the chocolate milk, when that sound tone was played, it got the chocolate milk, rewarded. And the second tone was that the rat should go forward and make a right turn towards sugar water, which are the 2 things that rat likes. And every time that he actually did that, when the second tone, the appropriate tone for sugar water was played, then he would get the sugar water. So it was conditioned which tone to make left to the chocolate milk and which tone to make right to the sugar water. And he became really good at it. They trained him a couple of 100 times, and he was really good at it. Then what they did, they overtrained him. They made another maybe 1,000 times. So the rabbit, every time did the right thing, got the reward. And what happens when he got the reward? Dopamine was secreted in his brain. So it wasn't just now good at recognizing which tone tells him what to do. It was also doing it because every time he got it right and got the chocolate milk or the sugar water properly according to the tone, he got dopamine. So now, after 1,000 times, he had a habit now by dopamine. That became his habit. The habit was so strong. How do they know it was so strong? Because now they added a certain kind of a medicine to the chocolate water that would make him nauseated, which was not a pleasant thing, no longer a reward. So they would play the tone, he would make the right turn, correct turn, go to the chocolate milk, have the chocolate milk, and get nauseated. But every time that tone rang, even though he would get nauseated, he would still go do it. Why? Because it was his habit now. That is why it's so important to catch these shits that is happening in your brain before it gets to become a habit, because it becomes more difficult to get rid of it. So whether it's checking the stove or the door, or locking door, washing your hands, or intrusive thoughts, debating on it, and trying to argue with it, or data hunt it, or ruminating on it, all of that shit, it can become a habit, and no longer is because you actually give a shit about the thought or have any kind of a respect for it or believe it of any kind. It's because now it's become a habit. And every time that you do it, you get a dopamine because you're satisfied because you did something about it and you got that compulsion going. So don't allow these things to become a habit, because then it puts away your being cured of it and being in control of understanding how this actually functions, this malfunction. All right. Hope that was something. And that's curious. We've got viewers of 17 and likes of 25. That's that's pretty good. But I'm looking forward to have 17,000 viewers. So I wonder if that's going to happen and when it's going to happen. Maybe you guys can now share the video, the 2-minute video that I have on YouTube that announces the live streaming. Did you guys do that? Did you guys yesterday, when Luna actually shared that video on her social media to prop the event? Did you guys do it? Please do it. That's the least you can do. God damn it! What can I say? Go on my channel, find that 2-minute video. It says announcement of the live stream, and click on the copy of the link and put it on your social media and everywhere else that you can. It will do the job. It will help us out. Please do that. Don't be lazy. I need your help. Otherwise, we can't get anywhere. We'll just get destroyed and we get forgotten, as we already are forgotten, pretty much. Only the ones who have found us. Look at it. As good as you say this whole program is, we've got 18 people here. Is that something you want to see? So the more we have, the more financially we get secure on this channel. And of course, the more I can justify just simply move most of my time towards doing what I'm doing rather than 50% of it. All right.